people, distant relatives, or co-workers. It happens in families as well.
Extending that into families. Now, how do you think the mind game is applied and worked in family situations?
So, I had an interesting discussion yesterday with a cleaner at one company who was engaged to the son of the secretary in the company. And the engagement was broke off a month ago. And since then, the secretary has absolutely blatantly been victimizing this young lady to the point where she used triangulation to control this young woman. So she told this young woman she's coming in for disciplinary hearing with me, and that the owner of the company is extremely unhappy with her work, which is simply not true. And I sat and I listened to what is happening in this company between these two women. And I tell you, David, it is ghastly. I was shocked to my core that one person can behave in this manner to control another person with fear. And I sat back and I wonder, why is the secretary behaving like this? And I think number one, she's hurt because the engagement was broken off. You know, um, she wants to protect her son. I understand that. I've got two daughters. I also want to protect them. But I'm not going to belittle somebody else. I'm not going to victimize somebody else. I'm not going to put fear into them because my ego is now touched and hurt because my son's engagement or my daughter's engagement was broken. And that's the
Mm.
things that we get into contact with every single day. And it's becoming more prevalent. And I really think it's because people's emotional intelligence and people, or not their emotional intelligence, the emotional maturity is not always at the level where it should be.
Mm. And
That's
that's prevalent. You find that prevalent in a lot of communities. If they're not, let me put it this way, brought up or working in an environment where the EQ levels are high, because most people just banner everything under this tag called emotional intelligence, emotional quotient. But actually, when you deep dive on it, it's made up of three components, and that's what you should one should look at: the emotional
correct.
competency, just like a person getting educated. So there is an emotional competency tag, there is an emotional sensitivity tag, which is where you're just mentioning the case about the issue there between the secretary and the son and the girl that's broken up the engagement. And the last obviously is emotional maturity. Now, when you take that tripod, I call it the tripod of EQ. When you take the tripod, you then have this balancing act to play. And unless a person's mind is in harmony and in sync, they will be distorting their outlook to what they're trying to determine in it. And that's the cause of all these issues. And what we need to look at is how can we rationalize it? As whether you're a coach or a mentor or whatever it is, you still need to look and figure out how can you rationalize this journey such that it's harmonic for them. And many can't see
That's
that.
why it's. Mm.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, David, I wanted to say that's why it's important that we look at the behavior. We actually look at the behavior behind the behavior, if I can
Right.
explain it like that. Because
Yeah.
somewhere there's an unmet need, somewhere there's maybe fear of losing control, there's a wound that was never healed.
Hmm.
Alka spoke about healing earlier. And a lot of the time when people behave in this manner, it's because of past trauma that hasn't been healed.
Exactly. Exactly, and that's the gaslighting. These type of items that come through are because of past trauma. That is only one. Low self-esteem is another, a huge component, and most
Mm.
don't realize that low self-esteem creates this vulnerability, and therefore it impacts the outlook. Another is the power dynamics that both of you discussed earlier at the start, and we touched on emotional competency levels. Now, all of these are contributing factors towards this mind games. If you can steer back into what Alka touched on earlier about the family aspect and how it's navigating with diseases, Alka, your patients that are coming to you,
Yeah,
and where families are not caring as much and at the same time not considerate enough, whether it's a young child, a middle aged person, or a senior person, how much of it is impacting the disease levels.
yeah. Before even going to the disease, I like to share something that parents today,
So,
it's not in India, it's everywhere. Parents today expect a certain kind of a behavior from a child, and if the child is giving that behavior, he gets a lot of gifts, or he gets a lot of love, and he gets the understanding that only if I behave in this particular way am I going to be loved by my mother or by my father. And that to me is totally conditional love, and that is a mind game that the parents are playing with their children to make them study or to make them do certain things whatever they want them to do. But what the child is learning is that if I want love from my mother, I have to do this well in my exam, I have to do this
right.
behavior, I have to not eat sweet, I have to not do this. And that's what is very, very hurting. The child should be given an opportunity that no matter who I am, no matter where I am in my studies, no matter how dumbo I may be, every child is not very intelligent. He may be a good drawing person, he may be a good painter, he may have something else in him. It's for the parents to find out what is there in this child. But instead of that, they put a lot of pressure on the child, and then the child gets into that behavior mode. And he's so stressed, David. Today, we see children today, they're so stressed. At the 15 and 16 years of age, I find one child coming to me and telling me, I'm calling him child because he's just in standard 10 in school. And he told me that I rather go to a chat bot and get empathy from a chat bot rather than go to my mother, because my mother is telling me you got to behave in a certain way, you got to do this, you got to do that, and she labels me at you're good for nothing. So I think somewhere we are wrong. We as parents, we as elders, we are wrong, and we are playing our own mind games. We may not realize it, but we are playing mind games with the children, with the people in our lives, and with our own selves. We don't
Hmm.
realize it that what we want is actually something which we did not receive in our life. We want it from our child, and we're imposing something on the child. If I didn't become a doctor, let my child become a doctor. I've heard this from innumerable parents, David. I could not do this, I want my child to do it. No, the child doesn't want to become a doctor. He wants to draw, he wants to paint, he wants to do something else. You can't force him to do that. And that child, he starts thinking that yes, I have to do this, I have to do this, well, then my mother will love me. And that is the wound which is being created inside the child. He becomes a victim of his parents' behavior. Now, coming to the diseases part, when we are not emotionally intelligent, when we are victimized, when we are made to, somebody is doing gaslighting with us. So what happens to me? I feel that whatever I'm doing is wrong. I'm made to believe that. Although I'm in the right, I'm made to believe that I'm doing the wrong thing. Now that kind of stress is there in me, and a chronic stress sets in. I'm always, analyzing my behavior. Am I doing right? Am I doing wrong? And that chronic stress is acting on the hypothalamo pituitary axis and the adrenaline. It's called the HPA axis. It helps
Hmm.
us to increase the amount of cortisol and the epinephrine and the noradrenaline. And a completely stressful environment is created inside our body, inside our bloodstream. And this is called inflammation. It's called an inflammatory, like you hurt yourself, it becomes red in
Yeah.
color. You hurt something and it becomes red in color. The redness is called inflammation, and that is known as inflammation in the whole of the body. All our organs are in that state of sympathetic tone. This, so what happens is someone says something to them, they're ready to shout, they're ready to scream. And I feel very sad for those people because they don't know what they're doing. Actually, it's a mind game, somebody else is playing with them and they're not aware of it, and they're suffering because of that. They're angry, they're ready to pounce at anybody. And this is the disease what I'm talking about, is the stress which is created, chronic stress which is created in their lives, in their bloodstreams, can give rise to blood pressure, it can give rise to cardiovascular disease, it can give rise to dementia, because the brain cells are dying, it can give rise to stroke. I just mentioned in the beginning of the session today, a 26-year-old just fell dead. For what? Why should a 26-year-old die? So somebody is troubling him, somebody is stressing him out like anything. So these are the things I wanted to share, that if we take care of our health, if we don't take care of our health, if we are not looking at the mind games, we don't know the mind games are being played with us, but the stress is still there, that I'm doing
Exactly.
something wrong. strong. And that's what we are doing here, that we are creating an environment, and we all have to help each other. Everybody has a role to play here. We all have to help each other to understand each other, to empathize with each other, and to find out what are the mind games people are playing with them.
And the interesting thing, when that happens, you're in a state that you cannot logically navigate yourself out of the crisis or out of the situation. Therefore, what do? You react rather than respond. And when you are in that state of reaction rather than respond, the whole synopsis of can I make a decision goes for a toss. Okay? Now, when you are not able to make a decision, and it's in those moments when decisions are made that your destiny is shaped. Therefore, if you cannot make decisions in that state, your destiny goes for a toss. And so when you talk about divorce rates going up, these are the crises that happen. The same thing in relationship breakup, the same thing in issues that father-son, father-daughter, mother-son, mother-daughter, husband-wife, all of these areas are covered under this umbrella to say, hey guys, let's take stock and let's be not mature, let's be sympathetic to listen. And I keep saying this, God's given us 2 ears and 1 mouth to use in the right proportion, but we don't. We seem to be using this a lot more than this. Therefore, we go for a toss and we react rather than respond, as I said. And your thoughts on this, please, Enda.
David, it's so true, but somewhere we need to actually start creating the awareness so that we can help people and teach them to communicate consciously, just like you say. Use this less, but use it effectively. And we must help people to break out of these toxic cycles and not just manage them. Because when we help them to break out of it, we can help them to rebuild their psychological safety. And that's exactly what happens between this father and the son. We need to help them to rebuild that psychological safety net for both of them.
Yeah.
And once we do that, we can help people to actually move forward with clarity, with courage, with compassion. And when they get to compassion, imagine if the three of us just throw a little stone in the river or in a dam, and the circles that it goes out and out and out and out and out. How absolutely amazing would it be if we can start this wave of change in terms of mind games through the world and help people to come out of that toxic environment, out of that toxic relationship, and be able to open up their vulnerability, knowing that they are in a safe, secure environment and that they will be heard and that they will be valued.
That's one of the key reasons why this whole subject has been opened up, primarily because, as Alka pointed out too, many people do not understand. They have just banded all of these issues under one umbrella to say, oh, it's just mental disease. It's not. It's one segment of it. And if you can hone in on this, which is prevalent now, especially with that generation gaps that I mentioned earlier, the years that the Y generation, X generation, Z generations are coming through. And the concern I have is unless this awareness is created, everyone is just going to roller coaster the way it is and think nothing is happening, everything is honky-dory. It's not. And that awareness is the way to open it up for them and then let them look at platforms such as this, MRM, or any other platform, that they can go and find a nurture person to help, not a mature, but a nurturing person to help support that. And then over time, be strong enough to be the butterfly that can fly. And that's the whole intention here. So you're 100% right in what we're trying to achieve here. And I hope some of the members are listening out there will then understand this is what they need to do themselves.
And
David, let me move on to the next thing. Why do you think this happens? Why do you think people play these mind games?
It's obvious, because they have low self-esteem, they have they have low self-worth. They don't know what they want in their lives. They don't know which direction they are going. They have no purpose of life.
You hit my nail on the head.
Yeah, it takes a lifetime to find your purpose, but whatever it may be, when people are not sure of what they want in their lives, where they're going, they're looking for external validation, they want to be appreciated and they want to be praised by other people, and they just want to be visible, and that's why they play mind games. But what I want to share with you is that this boy who died, he was sharing his pain with some of his friends. My question to all the friends is that don't be quiet. Don't be quiet when somebody is sharing this pain of the office. So this guy who's put up a post on LinkedIn, he's from another office, not from the same office. But I'm saying that after dying, after your friend has died, and you put up this post on LinkedIn, it makes really very little sense. But if we could
Yes.
protect this boy, and if we could save him from committing suicide, he didn't commit suicide actually. It is not a suicide. It's not a mental health problem. It's a complete exhaustion case because his heart was troubled and he fell dead because he was lack of sleep, lack of everything, and too stressed out, and he died. But I'm saying that the people who are listening to him, the people with whom he's sharing his story, don't be quiet. Do something about it. Go to the mother, go to the father, go to the spouse, go to the person who is working, whoever it may be, go to another friend, share with another friend, and help this person. That's my message. If you can share this, because even if he has to leave the company, he has to think twice because he's earning his bread and butter from there. It's not easy for him to just leave the company and he has to look for another job. Even if he has to look for another job, he needs help from other people. So I'm saying that sometimes we are so helpless into what we are doing and we are just giving up our lives for the stress and strain and the mind games that people play. So this is a message for the people whose friends are in trouble, or if you're in trouble, and if your friends are in trouble, don't be quiet. Do something about it. Yeah.
Let me open up a subject which I've never shared in my platform with you guys previously. And this is a case that goes back to 2006, where I was a corporate trainer for this particular IT company in Chennai. And we went through 3 months of continuous different types of training to bring the employees up to speed with a certain quality work. Okay. I came back to Australia for Christmas and I was having a beautiful dinner here with my family. And one day I get a call from the HR head of this particular company. And well, let me call his name John. And John asked me, Dave, where are you? And I said, I'm in Brisbane. He said, why? What's the matter? And he said, we need to run a stress management program in our company. Can you do it before New Year? And I said, what? Why are you requesting this? And you won't credit it. He said, I had this guy. He went for a wedding. They came back on their bike, 6 of them, riding back. And I don't know if the foreign guys like yourself, Enda, would know. There are tea shops along the streets of India. And as they were riding back, they stopped for a tea. And we call it a 2 rupee tea shop. Okay. And it's great. Beautiful tea. Alka knows that I drink a lot of those tea, especially with ginger. And they stopped for tea at the shop. They all ordered tea. This guy was sipping his tea. As he was sipping, he leaned back and just collapsed, never got up. Okay? Case 1. So this HR person rings me up to say, we need to run this. And I said, my last work with you guys did not in any way indicate that. Guess what happens on the 31st of December? I get a call from him and he says, you won't credit this. I've got my accountant who was here trying to meet deadlines on submitting their reports because their parent company is a US company, submit reports. And we found him the next morning, keeled over on his desk. We thought he was asleep. He passed away. You talk about stress, huh? Now,
Yeah.
when I spoke to him after that, he said, we need to do something. So I said, I'm back on the first week of January. We will talk about it and we'll go through the employees. So we went through a deep dive into each of those 30 employees. What we found was the pressure and the push that was provided or given by each of the managers, senior managers, to ensure they met the deadline before 31st of December.
Yeah.
Work pressure meets sales pressure in each one of those components. That's not to say all companies are like that. Please, the guys out there listening, do not take that as a measure there. This is certain specific organizations where the push was done to meet deadlines. And this, many of the employees don't have what we call, you can cope with it. If you do not have what we're talking about, Alka and Anda would be very familiar with this. Self-care, your
Yeah.
morning rituals, your night
Absolutely.
rituals. That is the trigger that puts back into us the body nutrients, the mind nutrients, and the soul nutrients that you need to survive. And that is the major cure for mind games that most people don't understand.
Yeah.
Unless you practice that, it's not going to come. We're not touching that topic here today. What is self care? But this is a component that causes that problem. And that's why it's imperative this awareness is brought out there to the public and more important to managers to ensure that the employees are self care. Your thoughts on that, please, Alka?
David, but the corporates today, all over the world, wherever you go, it's the same thing. It's only about PPP. It's about profitability, profitability, profitability. They don't see the human part. They talk about they talk about human-centered leadership. They talk about spiritual leadership. But frankly speaking, none of that is happening. And if the culture doesn't change in the corporates, then the youngsters are suffering. We are putting the blame on the Z generation. The boy who died was a Z generation. And what's
Right.
wrong with him? He wants to earn some money. He has qualified himself. He wants to earn some money. So why are we blaming the Z generation? I feel whether it is Z or it is alpha or it is beta for the time being, we have to understand these people. And many people, as for me also, I did not know what is a mind game. It's only over a period of time when we mature in our life, we understand what's a mind game. We don't understand what's a mind game. If somebody is doing something to us, we don't understand that. So it is earlier that we understand what is happening in our lives, and the friends around us can help us to realize what's happening in our lives. Only then we can change the ideology and all of life and about mind games. Over to you, David.
Yeah. And your perspective on this area that we just spoke of.
David, I want to say to the people that are currently watching us, and that is going to watch us in the future, you need to start with yourself. Number one, you need to set healthy boundaries. You need to know what is good for you and what is not good for you.
Yeah.
And you don't need to take the bait. You don't need to entertain this kind of behavior. But you also need to stay true to yourself. So when something happens that does make you feel unsettled, and we have a practice that we call winding down at night, where we analyze our day and we do our journaling, write it down. Analyze what happened. Analyze why did you feel the way you felt? Why did this person's behavior make you feel like that? How can you prevent that in the future? Don't keep quiet. Go and talk to, like Alka said, talk about this. It is important. And,
Yeah.
if you really feel out of control, go and seek help. Seek help from a therapist if needed. Seek help from your friends. But don't take the bait and don't keep quiet. It's
Absolutely.
very important.
Very, very, very valid and important point. I will also add a caveat to that. Uh, Friends out there, when you seek help, make sure you seek help from someone who has that knowledge of it, and make sure you understand that person. I use this analogy, and that's why these two ladies are laughing. And like in India, whenever you want to seek help, what will happen will be, why I'm talking about India especially because I lived in India for the last 3 decades. They'll go to the neighbor next door. Okay, this guy is earning 10,000 rupees and he wants to earn 10,000 rupees. No, he wants to earn 1 lakh. He goes and asks his friend next door. The friend next door is also earning 10,000 rupees. Can that friend teach him how to make 100,000 rupees 10 times? No. So please go to somebody who has that exposure and understanding. And that's all I'm going to say. That's why I use the word caveat.
I want to say most of the times, when somebody is telling their problems to the other person, the other person is getting ready to tell his problems to this person. Yeah. So, like she says, oh, my husband is like this. Oh, you don't know, my husband is like this.
Husband as well.
Most of the times, nobody is listening to anybody. Nobody is listening to anybody. People are just talking and talking and talking over each other. There is nobody who is having heart to listen to the other person's problems. So, really speaking, the truth is, you listen to yourself first. What Anderson is so true. Are you able to listen to yourself first? Listen to yourself. Write down what is wrong with me. What am I doing? Why am I doing? Why am I behaving in this way? Because nobody is going to listen to you in the way that you can listen to your own self. That is so beautifully told. And I'm telling you, nobody here likes to listen to other people's problems. They just keep pouring their own problems over each other. And ultimately, there is nothing coming out of such a conversation. So we really need to search for those spaces, create those spaces where we can invite people into our lives and allow them to share authentically, genuinely, what is the pain you're having in your life. And I'm very happy to tell you that I have some very nice friends here right now in front of me, two of them in front of me. And also in my personal life, I have very, very nice friends with whom I can share my pain and who can tell me the real thing, that what I need to do, what I don't need to do, or just listen. We don't need fixing. We don't need anyone to fix our problems. We just need that somebody can listen to us very, very intently with their heart and not be judgmental about it. Thank you.
Yes. Now, before we go, I mean, we only got 2, 3, 4 minutes. I want to cover another aspect. I wish we could have more time. We might rerun and add on to this, deep dive on it, like what I always said. What's the impact? I want both of you to sort of consolidate your thoughts, what we've discussed so far, please, and think of what is the impact to the recipient of this mind games. How do you think he or she feels, and how do you think he or she would react, and how do you think he or she would have that, whether it's a disease, physical, mental, spiritual, impact on him or her?
So if the person is spiritually smart, emotionally mature, emotionally sensitive, emotionally, one more word, he is going to react in an intelligent way. But if he is not that spiritually intelligent, he's going to absolutely react. And he might just say, what do you think of yourself? And why are you doing this to me? And that can worsen the situation. Becoming a victim of a situation, of a mind game, can actually run you down and make you feel very low in your life and with low self-worth, no matter how high this person is. But if the person makes him believe that he's nothing and he's good for nothing, that's how he's going to feel. So developing a spiritual intelligence, your emotional intelligence, is the way to go. Over to you, Enda.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think, if we think about the effect of mind games on a person, and we go back to the examples that I've shown, number one, it causes emotional discomfort, distress, confusion, codependency, anxiety. It actually makes you feel crazy and insecure. So why would I want to give somebody else that power over my life? And that is where you need to start, is to decide, why do I give that power away? How am I going to take it back? How am I going to set my boundaries? And that's why I said, it's important to understand what you want in your life, because nobody can make you feel worthless unless you allow them to do that.
So true, so true.
Take your power
back. Yes.
Yeah.
Hold on to
take
it.
your power back.
That's succinct way of putting it. They cover a number of, I think there are 4 or 5 elements that causes the individual to think twice. As you pointed, one was self-doubt. And that self-doubt is self-incriminating.
Yes.
And it spirals you down. I call it, you spiral down the black hole of Calcutta and you cannot come out of it.
Yeah.
That's one. The second thing is the confusion, as what you just said, Enda. And that confusion causes that disarray. And that disarray is what causes reactive situations. And when it's reactive situations, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's even in a recreation situation, outbursts that happen, you cannot control that. So we need to ensure, as you said earlier, that wind down or self-care time is emphasized a lot more. The next area, frustration. How many people have gone astray because of deep dive frustrating situations caused because of mind games? Because they don't know anywhere else out of it. They don't know any other way out of it. So they're just stuck in it. Anxiety levels. And anxiety levels is the worst criminal thing that's there today. And what do? They go to a psychologist. With all due respect to some of the psychologists, they prescribe serotonin tablets. And that's great.
They should just come to Fire to Wire in the morning.
I know!
5:15 in the morning in South Africa, 9 o'clock in India, or 5:15 in India. You guys are welcome. I will promise you, we will change and transform your lives. You will be calm, you will be collected, you will be able to respond to situations and not react. No, guys, seriously, Fire to Wire and mental resilience will change your mind, will change your life.
How true, how true. So in a 10 seconds, that's all I can give you. How would you share your last thoughts to the audience? What would it be if you had to share it?
So my 10 seconds would be: build yourself, have a project for your life, design your own life. If you're working on yourself, look at it as a startup of your own life. And when you make a startup of your own life, when you concentrate and focus on your life, you don't have time for anything else. No matter what people do to you, you are going to be a strong person. So be a strong person, build yourself and your character. Over to you.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Alka. Yeah, I would say, we always say you are the director of the film of your life. Choose the story that you want to write.
Hmm.
Don't get sidetracked. Stick to your script. And when you do that, you will end up with a Grammy.
how true, how true. Yes, thank you so much, ladies. Truly appreciate your time and the pre-work that you did also. I truly appreciate that. We
Thank
will
you.
look at locking up another one in a month's time on the same topic, but deep dive further. Ladies and gentlemen out there, I hope you got something from today's message. And at the same time, I do wish you well as we get into the weekend. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Sunday is a good time for self care.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much, guys. Take care now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone is gone.